We're going to be building a new shop and office over the next few months, and we've decided to invite you along to be a part of the process during the early stages while we're still doing the planning. In our previous episode, we showed you some of the outline of what we wanted to do. We showed you the overall footprint that we're planning. Today, I'll respond to a lot of the comments and suggestions that you left in that last video, and we'll also show you some of our proposed interior plans. Let's get started. In the last video, I mentioned a web page where you could submit your ideas for us, including photos and, well, all the details that you might want to mention. Unfortunately, I failed to create the page. The good news is it's ready now. You can go to tractortimewithtim.com/shop ideas, submit your ideas there, including photos. And if you think we need to see your shop, check that little box there and we'll consider visiting. Now, one commenter said, "You haven't even finished the dock project. How can you start another one?" Well, that's fair enough. This is one of the risks of sharing our plans early. It'll be several months yet before this building comes to life. By then, you'll probably be tired of hearing about it. But we have to do upfront planning, and we've decided to share a lot of the decision process with you. Got a few comments about the 3D design tool that we used. It really shows up nicely, doesn't it? It's Home Designer Pro. It's not a sponsored app. Neighbor Chris actually introduced it to us a few years ago. It's not incredibly easy to use, but on the other hand, you can be up and running in an hour or two if you've got a little bit of computer confidence. It's really helped us to visualize some of our ideas and rule out some things as well as rule in some things. So we'll show you some more of that in this episode. Digging into these suggestions, by far the number one suggestion was a heated floor. The biggest advantage that we hear from everyone is that it's more comfortable when you're working on the floor. Well, I've discussed this with Dave, and we've realized that we really don't work on the floor very much, right? If we've got something that we need to work under, we raise it up and work on the lift. It's an expensive install. People are saying it's not good for the transition seasons, right? When the temperature's not fully cold, where you need the heat all the time, it's just not as good for that. We also hear that it's slow to recover. So in other words, if you open both doors, let some air through, cold air through, it takes it a long time to get back up to temperature. Well, I plan to actually run this building fairly cold, maybe 45, 50 degrees most of the time, and then we want to raise the temperature only during the times that we'll be working in there. So the slow recovery bothers me a good bit. And another aspect is that we're going to need ductwork and all the equipment for the air conditioner that we're going to put in anyway. A furnace really doesn't cost very much once you've got all that ductwork installed for the air conditioner anyway. So overall, we're not leaning towards using a heated floor. Now, I know that's probably going to rile some people, but you know, we're still open to the idea. If you want to try to convince us again, let us know in the comments. But right now, we're leaning away from a heated floor. Many of you mentioned a bathroom, and of course that's an important priority, especially as I get older. Our plan is to have the bathroom in the office connector space here. And yes, I'll have to walk in here with dirty feet. Christy has approved that. As she says, everything will be a little bit of a compromise. We don't see a need for a separate bathroom out in the shop space itself. Several mentioned a shower as well as a laundry setup. Others mentioned a large sink for rough cleanup. We don't have that in the plan yet, but we think it's a great idea. One guy mentioned a water fountain, and he said it was kind of a joke when he installed it, but then it turned out to be one of his favorite splurges, I believe he called it. I don't know that I really need a water fountain unless they can come up with one that flows Diet Pepsi. Hey, maybe I could get a Pepsi fountain, a Diet Pepsi fountain. That might be first class. I'll have to ask Christy about that. Frequent mentions of, oh, you can move that oak tree. Just get a tree spade, it's easy. Well, the oak has a 61-inch circumference. That'd be a 19.5-inch diameter. Christy called several places just for fun. She got one callback. He said, no, we don't do that large. One commenter was insistent, and he said it would take only 1 foot of tree spade for every 1 inch of diameter. So as soon as we find that 20-foot tree spade, we'll be all over this. Good ideas on how and where to locate the air compressor. For now, I think we're going to leave the air compressor in the existing shop and run an air line to to the new shop. We'll then have compressed air fittings at each of the doors and at the wash bay. Hopefully we'll be all set there. Lots of comments mentioned you want electrical outlets everywhere. And I understand that we will put a lot of outlets on different circuits around the building, but I'm kind of wondering if this is not as important as it used to be. With battery tools, we find that we're not searching for an outlet nearly as often as we used to. So I think there might be a transition happening where you don't really need quite as many outlets as you did in the past. Another commenter mentioned exposed conduit, and the idea is that by exposing the conduit on the inside of the walls, then you can modify that and move it as you wish. To me, that just looks cluttered. So I think I'm willing to pay the price up front of saying, no, I can't easily move my electrical outlets for the cleaner look. Of course, we'll still need multiple 240 volt outlets for our welder, pressure washer, potential move of our air compressor, and our lift. We want to create a charging area for our battery tools. We need ideas on how to lay this out. We see some of this at trade shows. For instance, Milwaukee and Steel both show big charging stations. Unfortunately, as much as we try to standardize, we have multiple brands: Steel, Milwaukee, DeWalt, Menards, and a half a dozen other one-offs. We need a creative way to organize this for both now and in the future. A lot of constructive comments on the door, so I thought I'd go through the different ones we have spec'd here. The biggest door is at the rear. It's 26 by 18 foot high. The current plan is for this to be an airplane style door. We'll have more info on that in the future. The exterior wash bay door is 12 foot wide, 16 feet high. Interior wash bay is 12 by 12. Perhaps this should be a little bit taller, I'm not sure. The front door is going to be 20 feet wide, 14 foot tall. The biggest point for me is that my 16 foot wide, 10 foot high door has been large enough for almost everything we need. So I'm fairly confident these doors will be great. Love this comment. A PVC tube through the wall near the big door, so that if you want to run an electrical wire or an air hose or something out the door, but you don't want to have to raise the door to do it. Maybe you want to charge a trailer battery that's outside. A lot of other reasons you might want to run a cord outside but not have your big door open, nor have to have the door smashed down on the cord to close it. Yeah, I like this idea. So the PVC tube would run through the wall and you'd put a cap on both ends of it. And if you needed to use it, you could just easily screw those caps off on both ends. I like the idea. We'll consider that one. How about real estate taxes? Is this connected concept going to cost us more? We appreciate the nudge on this. We really needed to check into it. What we found here is that being connected is actually going to cost us a bit less than a disconnected plan. But that's no reason to celebrate. This addition is going to add a lot to our assessed value and therefore our taxes. One viewer suggested we use a brick wainscoting to make the connector piece seem more well connected to the house. We'll have this 30-foot strip of brick available to us. We just don't know for sure how to clean it cost effectively or in a reasonable amount of time. If we can't figure out how to reuse these bricks cost effectively, we might try a different upgraded wainscoting. Several suggested a pit for oil changes. Well, we just don't see the need for this. We use our lift for this type of activity. Others suggested some sort of chain hoist or jib crane. When I was a kid, we used a big A-frame chain hoist a lot, but Dave and I really haven't had the need for that. I think the forklift will handle most of our needs. We might embed a pipe or some sort of deep foundation for such a jib crane in the future, but don't see a need for one right now. How about a mezzanine to increase the usable storage space? We like this idea. Here's our current thoughts. We're showing a couple of different types of railings here. I think Christy would prefer the solid wall as it kind of hides some of the clutter. Of course, we'll leave one area open or with a gate perhaps to allow forklift access. One thing that bothers me is the obstructive aspect of the posts, especially a corner post. I've drawn it here without a corner post, but I'm not sure if that's technically possible. We're thinking our utility or technology closet would be on this end, electrical panel, server racks, one of our two furnaces. The other will likely be in the wash bay. We'll talk more about that in later episodes, hopefully. We'd like to plan for solar power. Now, I don't want to get everyone riled up with this, but I really like the idea of residential solar, mainly because of the independence factor, right? If something goes totally awry in the grid, it would be really nice to say, hey, I've got power, I don't really care. We're in good shape here. So I want to try to do a little bit of planning toward that, but I'm not certain that I've got the time to fully think it through and go ahead and get the components to do that during this initial construction phase. We'll see what we can do. One concern I have is the 30% tax credit. I'm wondering if that will be removed next year with the new administration. It might very well be. And then I'm wondering if the prices will end up going down by 30% just because you understand. So it's hard for me to predict the future on that and to see how things are going to go, but we have seen prices on the solar equipment decline a lot this year, and so it might continue to decline into the future, maybe even enough to make up for a removal of the 30% tax credit. Guess we'll have to see. Several comments mentioned using fireproof walls between the shed portion, the shop portion, and the office portion. I like that idea, did a little bit of research on it. On the inside, I'm pretty sure we can use a fire-resistant drywall. On the outside, we were planning to put steel right up against the wall. I'm not sure whether that is fire-resistant enough to help or if we need another layer of drywall in there. I really don't know the details on that. I've got to do more research, but I like the idea of at least trying to have some fire resistance between the shop area and the house. It'd be nice to have that separation. There's a lot of passion about spray foam insulation, and I understand that. Very expensive on this size building. So what we've decided right now as a compromise is that we will use 1 inch of closed cell spray foam insulation on the walls and on the ceiling, okay, to seal the building. And then we're going to use R19 fiberglass inside of that on the walls and R48 blown in fiberglass above that 1 inch on the ceiling. So we think that's the best compromise financially that we can make. We think we're going to get the ceiling advantage of the spray foam and then the cost effectiveness of the fiberglass. Someone mentioned wiring for outdoor Christmas lights. We need to research this a bit more and just haven't had time. Another YouTuber, Hometown Acres, shot a video on this topic recently, and I need to watch it. Hopefully that'll help us figure out where to place switches and outlets to help us best celebrate the season. Several comments about ceiling fans. Yes, with this height ceiling, we will need ceiling fans. Now, we're not going to use the well-known name brand. Quite frankly, I find that name crude, and so we'll just have to find another vendor. That's just the way it is. I'm not going to buy that brand. But we will have ceiling fans. Suggestion to use scissor trusses to increase the usable height. We might do that for the office portion. I don't think that's needed for the main building since it's 18 foot at the eave already. We want the height right at the edge of the building due to our pallet racking plan, and we don't really have any additional height needs in the center. Commenter mentioned the need for a turnaround area for semi-trucks. Yeah, we know we need that. I'm not exactly sure how we're going to accomplish that yet. The good news is I think I can put that off and worry about that a little bit later, but it'll probably be some sort of a reconfiguration of our driveway. Just haven't had time to think that through. You need a loading dock. Well, we use our forklift or tractor and forks for all of our unloading. If we absolutely need to drive something off a truck, I have a nifty trick where I can drive onto the raised dovetail from our long trailer. My dad built a fancy loading dock on his building, and I think he used it twice. Yeah, over 30 years ago. One of the best questions that I saw was, why not just use your existing building as your shop and use the new building as cold storage? And that's something that we really considered. My biggest issue there is one of location with respect to our house. I'm quite attracted to the idea of being able to just leave the house, go right directly into my shop without going outside, without getting into the weather. I oftentimes do some small projects inside the house, maybe some home improvement type things. I really don't like having to take a very long walk or put on my heavy clothes just to go get 1 or 2 tools, and then I forget to put them away and end up losing them. Yes, that's just not been a pleasant situation. So I think having the shop attached to the house and then having the shop in the front near the windows where I can see cars coming, I can see what's going on. And there's this other advantage. I can say, hey, Christy, can you help me find the... She's not looking forward to that at all. But yeah, I just think I want my shop area to be up where the action is happening. Bollards or bumpers to protect the siding. Yep, we need that, and that's in the plan. That covers most of the comments that we saw. Just one last status update. I have filed the permit request to move our septic tank. I haven't got any response on that. I still have to pay the $100 fee. But we'll get started on this project as soon as possible, hopefully before it gets sloppy. and winter is totally set in, and it'll just be a real mess to do this. Hopefully we can do this sooner rather than later. We really appreciate all of your input, and if you've got any more ideas, we would love to hear them. Again, put them at tractortimewithtim.com/shop ideas. You can include photos there. Otherwise, you can put them at comments to the video. It's just the opportunity to include photos is why we had to have this separate website. I hope you're enjoying this following along. As I said before, we're sharing more up front than what we have ever shared before. All of these plans may change. We may not build anything, who knows? But this is what we're planning to do right now. If you want input, now is the time. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time on Tractor Time with Tim. Listen to advice and accept discipline, and at the end, you will be counted among the wise.